Teaching is an art. It takes thousands of creative, in the moment decisions every day. And while research can give us guides on what works, it is up to each teacher to decide what works for their class on that day. Let's take a brief look at how teaching has changed throughout United States history. The purpose of education has always been to prepare young people for the workforce. In the 1850s and into the early 20th century, curriculum was dominated by the three R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. This being called the three R's gives you some insight into literacy rates of the time. During this time, many of the other duties of raising responsible citizens fell outside of the school, to families, churches, and the community at large. But the mid-20th century brought changes to education. With the Second Industrial Revolution and the widespread use of automobiles, the apprenticeship model of workforce training was phased out, and schools were expected to move to transition children from family to work. By 1918, the National Education Association had expanded the three R's into a list of 7 goals for education. This list included health, command of fundamental processes, worthy home membership, vocational preparation, citizenship, worthy use of leisure time, and ethical character. Teachers were now expected to teach children how to be adults. This also began the era of certification for teachers. The world continued to advance, and the Third Industrial Revolution of the 1970s brought with it new technology and higher standards for educators. Curriculum was developed for all major subject areas, and research was accomplished in the area of human development. This brings us to modern teaching in the 21st century. With the advent of the internet, students now have a vast array of resources not previously available to them. At the same time, there are difficulties in determining the validity and reliability of this information. In a 2007 study, only 52% of high school students were able to correctly judge the objectivity of a website. In a follow-up study done by Stanford in 2019, 96% of high school students studied could not identify that a climate change website funded by a fossil fuel company was unreliable. For today's teachers, education is not so much about providing information as it is instilling critical thinking skills. Modern education has also secured a place in the classroom for every student, including students with disabilities, students in poverty, and English language learners. In the next video, we'll look at how teachers meet the needs of all these individuals, but first, let's look at what it did for education on a national level. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2002 required that all schools meet a set of prescribed standards to prepare students for high school graduation. This policy received a fair amount of controversy and unfortunately led to declining graduation rates in some areas due to the new rigorous requirements for graduation. In addition to these policy changes, widespread inclusion in classrooms has also brought about several new theoretical perspectives on teaching. Objectivism, constructivism, intelligence theories, authoritarianism, and so many more ideas attempt to provide frameworks for educational best practices. All of these theories really attempt to do the same thing: create effective teachers who can teach students how to learn. Today's teachers are expected to bring 5 attributes into their classroom to maximize their effectiveness. 1. The ability to build relationships with students. 2. The cultivation of social justice in their classrooms. 3. An effective knowledge base for their subject matter. 4. A repertoire of practices to use with students. 5. The desire to continue learning as a lifelong process. These 5 attributes are attained through life experience, teacher education programs, and perhaps most importantly, the experience of actually being in a classroom. Researchers Conway and Clark categorized the experience of classroom teaching into 3 stages of development. The survival stage, in which new teachers worry constantly and are focused on just maintaining control of the classroom. The teaching situation stage, in which teachers can get into really dealing with the problems in their classroom and working to build their own repertoire to handle said problems. And the students' results and mastery stage, in which teachers have mastered the fundamentals and can now assume responsibility for the overall success of their students. This final stage is where researchers have found that students are happiest with their education, when teachers are able to move away from solely focusing on classroom management and take an active part in classroom learning. Let's hear from a seasoned teacher about their perspective on effective teaching in today's classrooms.
All right, so Ms. Frickel, how long have you been teaching?
This is my 20th year.
Okay, and tell me about the grade levels that you taught.
So the first 14 years of my career were spent in elementary, most of it in lower elementary. Kindergarten, first grade are where the majority of my experience lied. And then I did second grade for 2 years, fifth grade for 2 years, and then moved up into middle school. So this is my 6th year teaching middle school. I've done a lot.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing teachers today?
Really, the biggest thing is having to compete with a society where students are not having to basically establish those like stamina. Like stamina is the biggest issue. And part of the reason I say that is because we live in a society where technology gives them everything they want to know within 30 to 90-second bits.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a teacher, it's very difficult for us to teach in 30 to 90-second bits.
Yes.
And when we are dealing with a culture and a society where that is the expectation, and then they're immediately able to move on to something else, or if they don't like something, they just swipe to the next thing, that makes it very hard in the classroom. So we end up having kids who can't read for a substantial amount of time. We have kids who can't attend to tasks for over a few minutes. We have kids who think that they can say, I'm bored, this isn't fun for me, and it's our job to make it fun for them. Because there's some things in life that we have to do that aren't fun. There's some things in school that we have to do that aren't fun. And, you know, in order for students to be able to be functioning adults, they have to be able to learn how to do those things. And unfortunately, parents aren't doing that. So the schools are kind of having to do that for them.
So how do you do that?
One of the things I do a lot of project-based stuff. I try to make things as real world as possible. So even like writing assignments, I try to find either a writing contest to link to it or find some sort of real world application like, oh, we're going to use this with next year's group and they're going to critique it, or, oh, we're going to send this over to the elementary school for, you know, story time or, you know, something like that. We try to do projects too where it's like students are realizing like it's not just you doing something in a classroom, like you have an extended reach outside of this classroom. You know, so like the Heifer International project that we do where students are doing fundraisers for charities and things like that and really making an impact in other parts of the world. The Shark Tank project that we do where students are creating ideas to help solve problems within the community. So really trying to make those real world connections to things and really make them understand like sometimes learning that you do does have an impact outside of these four walls.
Okay. So if you had to help new pre-service teachers learn one thing to be successful in today's classrooms, what would it be?
Really patience and understanding flexibility. Like you have to understand that not every lesson that you teach is going to go well. Not every lesson you teach is going to be an award-winning lesson. There are going to be lessons that you teach that you're going to fail at, but being okay with failing and being okay to make adjustments and knowing halfway through a lesson, like if it's not going well, it's okay to switch it up. Also making sure, especially early on, like understanding you don't know everything and it's okay to ask people for help, especially those veteran teachers that are around you. Like even the woman down the hall who's been doing this for 20 or 30 years, like a lot of times they have strategies that you can use or activities that you can use to help when you're struggling. So, you know, make sure that you're utilizing the people in your building. They are there to help you.
Your middle schoolers think they know everything.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
okay.
Right.
They'll help you.